Hi, everybody. This is Robert Chadwick with America Mortgages. Thank you for joining us for another webinar. This time we are very happy to have an expert realtor from the Atlanta area, Steve Kim. Steve works for Engel and Volger, and he is actually an expert, much like us, in foreign nationals and expats investing in the Atlanta area. He's going to tell you everything that you need to know about Atlanta, some properties, and go over the advantages, etc. After Steve does his presentation, then I will cover the mortgage options that are available for Atlanta or 50 other or all throughout the US. So with that said, Steve, thank you for joining us. I think you need to turn your camera on. There you are. Thank you for joining us. We are excited to have you. Perhaps you can give us your take on Atlanta and why it's such a great market for our foreign national and US expat investors. So Steve, take it away, please.
Thanks, Robert. Thanks for having me on this webinar. Well, Atlanta is the hub of the southeast of the US, which is a really fast growing market. And I think a lot of people don't know much about Atlanta. And so it's kind of my pleasure to explain about the region and the growth in the city and the surrounding areas.
Perfect. So I think maybe we can start your presentation and go from there.
Okay, thank you. All right. Are we? Okay. All right. First, I'd like to explain just where Georgia is, and Atlanta in particular. If you go to the next slide. Okay, this is where Georgia is, right above Florida. It's one of the first 13 colonies, and it's the largest city, I'm sorry, the largest state west of the Mississippi. If you go to next. Okay, these are the 6 or 7 states we consider the Southeast: the Carolinas, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and Mississippi. Just to let you know where we are. And these are really major cities surrounding Atlanta. The 3 major cities here, Florida, Nashville is very popular, Charlotte, Raleigh. Atlanta is the hub of this region, and the area is pretty much booming, but there are a lot of cities that people don't know about. Go to next. Just to explain to you the economy, if you see California here, the California economy, GDP, is the 5th largest in the world by itself, which is after Germany, after US, China, Japan, Germany. California in itself is the largest, the 5th largest. And the 7 states here, I added them up, and it turned out to be a little bit larger than California. So it's a pretty major force in the US. This is just the projected population growth. You can see Florida and Georgia, they're all going up. You can also see in 2040, like North Carolina, the Carolinas are also growing very fast. The top 2 are California and Texas, obviously, but Florida will be, it already is the 3rd largest, and Georgia and South Carolina, North Carolina, they're all growing very fast. And these are some of the major cities, major companies headquartered in Atlanta. The largest one is actually Home Depot. It's not international, so many people might know it, but they're pretty major. I mean, everyone knows Coca-Cola, CNN, and maybe Chick-fil-A is not there yet, but also Delta. So these are a lot of Fortune 500 companies are based in Atlanta because of the region. So they can't have one in every little city. So they have in headquarters in Atlanta. And something that people might not know is actually Georgia is the 2nd largest film industry state in the US. And actually there are more films and TV shows produced in Georgia than in California, actually. There's a huge source of revenue for the state. These are some of the movies that were shot here. There is a big studio for the Marvel comics. And some of these are some of the older ones. I don't know if you know, these are the older movies. But the film industry is pretty big here, and it has brought in a lot of attention from California. 40% of the production still comes from outside of Atlanta and Georgia. So I think people are getting noticed. If you see a lot of the movies, a lot of the backgrounds are actually shot mostly in Atlanta. And one thing that is very, very unique these days, I think many of you know that the Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act, and this is bringing a lot of electric vehicle in this region. So they call this the battery belt. It's mostly Georgia, Tennessee, and North and South Carolina. But just Georgia alone, I mean, there's over 20 billion in investments and a lot of new high-paying jobs. These aren't just regular blue-collar jobs. It's mostly software because the EV industry is a little bit different. So I think you will hear the word battery belt going forward a lot more than as they start ramping up. And Hyundai is building a huge $5.5 billion factory near Savannah and also northwest of Atlanta. And SK and LG, a lot of Korean companies actually. And Japan also has a huge presence. And obviously Atlanta is the home of Mercedes-Benz and Porsche. So it's a lot of manufacturing going on here. Again, here are some investments in Georgia by the EV industry. As you can tell, also Rivian is investing $5 billion here. So just total of this is almost $100 billion. Sorry, it's probably 9.5 billion. So a lot of jobs, they're building these. And one thing this is causing is a little bit of shortage of housing because of this, workforce housing and also training. Now, one thing that Atlanta does have an advantage is still fairly affordable. Atlanta doesn't have an ocean, very similar to Dallas, so we can build out a lot more. As you can see, it is very affordable for a major city. We have, the Metro Atlanta has a population of around 6 million people. So it is the largest outside of Miami for the Southeast. And again, here are the price of homes. Yes, it's growing very fast. One thing that Atlanta is known for is the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. This is the busiest airport in the world. It has been for 24 consecutive years, except for the COVID. That's when an airport in China was the largest. So like it says, over 300,000 people go through this every day. It's massive. We have a joke in Atlanta that when you die, whether you go to hell or heaven, you go through this airport. Okay, and it's a very big employer. You can go to the next slide. Okay, here are some of the homes here. Atlanta is very, very spread out, but I want to just go over some of the featured listings here. Okay, this one is already been bought, and there is a tenant here. So I thought this was a good example to give you an idea. It's a brand new townhome. You can see the price at $260. There's $75 HOA, and the rent is $2,200, which is very good. And there's so many tenants here. Atlanta is becoming a renter city, and the prices are going up. So it is very, very easy to find tenants. There's a waiting list for anything that's very nice. And this area is very near the airport. In the past, it used to be a very, very bad area. So, but it's gentrifying quickly because we're just running out of space. This other one, this is a little bit higher level, higher end. This is a brand new, or just 1 year old condominium in the center of Atlanta. So the price is a little bit on the higher side, but still the rent prices are going up. But the main thing is, this is a very desirable area. And as you know, there is some scarcity built in. So we expect the price of this home to go up very, very fast. So this is a fast appreciating property more than a cash flow. And I think we have a video for this. This is in a new development area near the city. There's a lot of construction being built. And this is just to show you what it looks like inside. So you have the kitchen, dining. This is very popular with young professionals. A lot of people from New York and the West Coast are coming to Atlanta because that's where the jobs are. And Microsoft is going to build their third largest campus here near this area. So after Seattle, San Francisco, Atlanta will be the home of the next Microsoft campus, which basically means for them, this is very, very cheap if you're coming from Seattle and San Francisco. So we expect the prices to go up quite fast. All of this is fairly new. It wasn't here 2 years ago. And that's the backdrop of Atlanta. Here's another listing near the airport. This is also brand new construction. You can see the price at 382, still under 400,000. And the rent was 3,200. This is an actual, someone moved in a week ago. And this area, again, is a very good cash flow. It's almost 1% and very fast gentrifying. Again, this area was not a very good area in the past. Atlanta has a history. We have something called 285, which is the highway that goes around Atlanta. And inside deteriorated back from the 1970s. And after the Olympics, everyone started coming here because they finally saw that the quality of life was very good. And there's a lot of universities and businesses here. Okay, here's a video for that. It's a very simple new construction. This is actually design center. So the HOA takes care of everything outside, roof and everything. This is the inside. This is the model home that they're showing here. So the master's on the main, 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath. So it's hard to buy a new home for a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath under 400,000 in a fast-growing area. So also, this is near the film studios. So a lot of the people from the film industry stay here. Yeah, this is the loft. So that includes a loft and 3 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms upstairs using an office. And here's the fenced backyard. And as you may know, in the States, white has become very popular. Just seems cleaner and more space. So this is the backyard. Okay. And this is where it is. If you see where the airport is right down there. And that thing going around it is the 285. So they have a new word now, OTP and ITP. OTP is outside the perimeter and ITP is inside. And inside is very, very desirable. And I think one more property I want to show is this one here. This is a 1.65 million. This is used as a Airbnb. This is near a lake. So the net profit here is 173,800 for a year. It's a very, very popular location in Lake Lanier, which is the most popular lake in the Southeast. And it draws up to 8 to 11 million people a year, which is comparable to Disney World in Orlando. And you have a video location. And here's up here. This is the lake northeast of Atlanta. And this is just the projections monthly. And you can see a short video after this. This is Lake Lanier. Atlanta is very popular with people in the Southeast. So if you live in Alabama, Tennessee, everyone actually they do come to Atlanta at least once. So we have the NBA, Major League Baseball, which has the best record right now in the US. We have an NFL team, we have a soccer team, and this will be one of the host cities for the next World Cup. which will be held in the US, Canada, and Mexico. So it just gives you an idea of the potential for short-term rentals here. Yeah, short-term rentals along the lake is very, very popular, mostly because one county doesn't allow short-term rentals. So the other county, which this is on, gets the bulk of visitors. So 11 million people along the lake. There are very, very few hotels. So it's very easy to, as long as you can get that permit, which this house does. They have their own dock, so it's very popular. So this is the view. I guess the music got lost. Yeah, Atlanta is fairly, we're very near the mountains. So I mean, we're near the Smoky Mountains. We're only an hour drive to Blue Ridge, hour and a half. Blue Ridge Mountains in the North Georgia mountains. It's becoming very, very popular as second homes. We're at the foot of the Appalachian Mountains. So one thing I think people don't know about Atlanta is that we have the most canopy of any major city in the US. So we have a lot of trees. And it's the second highest elevated city in the US, which isn't saying much because most cities are on the coast. So after Denver, Atlanta is very highly elevated. We have a lot of hills, mountains. We're not that far from the lake, less than an hour away. And we're only 4 hours from both coasts, the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf Coast. So it's the quality of life is pretty good in Atlanta. And the cost is fairly low for now, anyway. But it is getting attention from international buyers. So, yeah, it's a city I think many people don't know about, but it is a major, and it's a very diverse city as well.
So thanks, Steve, for showing us your home and what Atlanta looks like and the opportunities. I think what I got most from this is how areas are gentrifying. Areas that maybe had been run down over the years because of all these companies that are going into the Atlanta area. They have to gentrify these older areas and make them new. So I think for our clients and real estate investors, this is probably an absolutely perfect opportunity to come in while prices are still low and rentals are commanding probably the highest that they've been in years. So I don't know if you want to kind of expand on that. But
yes, I think the region is growing. The Carolinas are absolutely growing so fast. Yesterday, news came out. South Carolina is number one, North Carolina number two as far as manufacturing growth in the U.S. And Nashville is a massive city. Memphis is building the biggest Ford factory in history. But the thing is, they need a center. They need a hub, kind of like Singapore is a hub of Asia. Atlanta is kind of like Singapore. They have to have a base here. So a lot of the offices are based here, even if the manufacturers are in Alabama or in the Carolinas or in Tampa. So we have a very diverse workforce, and a lot of people with money are coming here because they are executives. A lot of foreign companies, a lot of regional headquarters. So in the past, they were looking at this area mostly as manufacturing, but now they really need a hub. And that's like Robert said, there's a lot of money coming in here. And for companies or people located in California, the Northeast, this is really cheap for them. So, but I'm not sure. I think for the next 10, 15 years, it's going to be very steady growth. But a lot of young people are coming here. If you grew up in Alabama, you want to work in Atlanta. And there are renters with money. So that's driving a lot of rental growth. So it's a good time to buy, knowing that it's slowly becoming a renter city like some of the other metros.
That's perfect. And just curious, some of the properties that you showed, and they had some excellent yields, but how long is it taking to rent these properties from when somebody is to buy it, to close on the property, and to have a property management to rent it out? What are we looking at from the day it hits the newspaper or whatever it's advertised in to when you start having clients and a tenant in?
Of course, it depends on the location, but we're not talking about months. We're talking about days or a couple of weeks. Now, one thing that's very unique about the city of Atlanta, because of the city of Atlanta, the Atlanta Housing Authority, there's a lot of opportunities, what they used to call Section 8, the housing. Because it's gentrifying fast, the city has to provide affordable housing. And they're very generous in giving people with Section 8, who are people who can't, basically the city pays for 80 to 100% of the rent. So if you can get it approved under the Atlanta Housing Authority, they'll be basically, it'll be within hours, you'll find. But you have to get it under that. There's a little bit of a process, and their rents are pretty good, their limits. So you can get pre-approved. There's a little bit of paperwork in the beginning, but if you can get it under that, there are more people with these vouchers, what they call to vend their homes. So that part is almost immediate.
Okay.
Then you just have to screen people.
I think we're seeing that actually across the US, the shortage, and it certainly is in Atlanta as well, the shortage of housing because they were unable to build during COVID, whether it was lack of supplies or lack of workers. It's really driving rental demand.
Yes, I mean, just Hyundai alone, 500 engineers from Korea are coming. Just one company. There's going to be 100 suppliers following them in, and they're all renters. They're expats. They're never going to buy, but they're not buying cheap. They're not staying in cheap homes. There's so many international companies coming here, and to be honest, Atlanta's a little backward in that. Okay, if you're coming from Hyundai or Mitsubishi, you don't have a credit score. You can't. And sometimes they don't rent them out, even though I know they're the best tenants. So there's ways to do it. And I've lived in Asia. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times too, if you're renting to a Hyundai employee or one of these other companies that are coming in, they're paid that allowance. So they know exactly how much they're getting in rent. It's just like expats around the world. So it's a super unique way to really maximize, I think, on the rentals.
Yes, there's like the Hollywood, the film industry, they have rental needs. That's not short-term rental. That's not long-term rental. They're staying here 3 to 6 months. They need flexibility. The Avengers was shot here. Black Panther, we had a whole team here. They had to stay somewhere. So there's a lot of other rental opportunities that, but the thing is, Atlanta's a little bit behind. It's not sophisticated like Dallas or New York. So there's a lot of opportunities right now because they don't really know this. But if you can reach out to the film industry, we have the CDC space here. That's why The Walking Dead. There's a lot of medical, fintech with a capital of fintech. Over 85% of all the transactions go through Atlanta, like Equifax, PayPal, all these payment systems. So it's we have a lot of universities here as well.
Yeah.
So
I think bottom line is Atlanta right now is a booming market. And if you're going to invest in some place maybe you're not familiar with, this actually could be the market. So thanks, Steve. We'll get to some questions and answers at the end. I'll start my presentation. It'll probably take about 10 minutes. And then if you want to start asking the questions in the chat, both Steve and I will be answering them at the end of the presentation. So thanks, Steve. We'll talk shortly. So yeah, so again, thank you for joining. My name is Robert Chadwick with America Mortgages. We will cover all the loan programs that we offer for foreign nationals and expats. Next slide. So a general mortgage overview for us, if you're not familiar, because 100% of our clients are living and working abroad, our loan programs are very, very specific to this. So on all of our programs, there is no US credit required. We would prefer if you had credit from your home country, But in the event, if you're from a country that does not have a credit reporting system, we can still work around it. All of our lending is dry lending, meaning we have no AUM requirement. There's no requirement to open up a bank account with the bank or the fund that offers this mortgage. Of course, foreign income is allowed. We have loan programs in all 50 states, including Atlanta in the Georgia area. If you're a foreign national, you can get up to 75% financing on a purchase, 70% on releasing equity. If you're a US expat, we try to make it just like you walked into a bank in the US, living and working, you can get up to 80%, which would be the same that you would get in the US. Normally, we have loan approvals within 72 hours. You give us the documents that are required, and we can issue you a pre-approval letter within a 72-hour period, often a lot sooner. Closing times are very normal. It's 30 to 45 days, depending on how you're going to sign your closing documents. And again, what makes us unique, the fact that we only deal with foreign nationals and expats. You can sign your closing documents without traveling to the US. There are a variety of ways to close, and we can fill you in with more details if you have questions on that. We do purchases, we do refinances, we do equity releases, and we even do bridge lending, so short-term financing to get liquidity. All of our loans are 30-year amortization, regardless of the borrower's age. I know that's quite unique for most countries. The borrowing age for the amortization is normally tied to the working age or some sort of specific age. But in the US, you cannot discriminate against anything, including age when it comes to housing. So whether you're 19 or 99, you still qualify for a 30-year mortgage. One thing that we're super excited about is we have a 10-year interest servicing only loan. What this does is it really helps out now that interest rates have increased. They're still historically low, but certainly they are above what it was post-COVID. So a lot of people are choosing to do a fixed interest only loan. It's a fixed rate servicing the interest for a 10-year period. And then instead of resetting to whatever the current rate is, that loan converts into a 30-year fixed at the same exact rate. And now you're paying principal and interest. So you have a total 40-year tenure. Excuse me. If you want to maximize the rental yield, this is absolutely perfect. We have loan programs that are based on common sense underwriting. And I'll go over that in another slide, but much like a commercial loan would be treated, it goes only off of the cash flow and not your personal income. Fantastic, easy way to qualify. And one thing that we are absolutely proud of as company-wide, 97% of the loans that we submit get approved and closed. The only, or I shouldn't say the only, but likely, if for some reason the loan doesn't close, it's not an issue with the mortgage, it's normally an issue with the property. We have loan officers in 12 different countries working 24/7. So no matter what time zone you're in, you are going to be able to talk to a loan officer in your time zone and often in your own language. Something very, very unique. Next slide. So here I'll go over our loan programs. The first loan program, and absolutely our most popular program, is our America Mortgages, or AM Express Plus. This is the one that I was talking about that is common sense underwriting. This loan qualifies you only on the rental income of the property. You don't have to provide any personal income. An absolutely perfect loan if maybe you're self-employed, maybe not showing your true serviceability, whatever it may be. This is common sense underwriting and how underwriting of investment properties should be. We have loan amounts as low as $150,000. Again, no US credit is required. And we can go on this program as high as $3 million as long as it's being used as a rental property. The next slide will explain how this works if it wasn't quite clear. When we get the appraisal or the valuation report, we request a special supplement to that. That special supplement, much like on the comps of the value, it also comps the rentals. So we have an exact idea of what the average rent for that typical property would be, and we use that as the income to qualify. In this example, we use gross rental income of $2,400. When we look at the mortgage payment, which includes principal, interest, tax, and insurance, if it is at or below, the loan qualifies. And we use 100% of the rental income. Fantastic program. Next. So our normal program, rather than providing US tax returns, is super unique as well. Because we're doing loans for borrowers all around the world, whether they're in Sydney or Shanghai or Singapore or London or wherever they may be, if we were to go through their tax returns, it would be an underwriting nightmare. So rather than supplying your tax returns, what we ask for, and we have a template for this, is a letter from your employer if you're employed, or a letter from your accountant if it's self-employed. That letter merely states 2 years of income and current year-to-date income. With that, it's considered full income documentation, so you get prime rates and easier qualifying. Again, no US credit required, loan amount as low as $150,000, 75% loan to value as a foreigner. This is how this would work. It actually, much like your home country, it does work on a debt to income ratio, which for this particular case is 47% of your gross rental income. So whatever your gross rental income is listed on the letter, as long as the mortgage payment is less than or equal to 47%, the loan qualifies. Very simple and straightforward. So we deal with a lot of private banks and a lot of high net worth clients. They are quite challenged to work with when they have maybe multiple jurisdictions of where they're getting their income, or very complicated tax returns when they go to standard banks. For us, we have a very unique loan program. We take the liquid assets. Liquid assets could be cash in the bank, stocks, bonds, whatever you think it may be, you can ask us and we should be able to tell you if it will qualify for the underwriting. What this is we take a 2 months average. So we get 2 months of your bank statements or a quarterly statement, whatever it may be, and we use that as your qualifying income. Again, no need to provide personal income. When we have this average income, and I'll explain on the next slide how it works, we use that as you qualify. What makes this loan program absolutely fantastic is even though we're using this liquid portfolio to qualify, there is no encumbrance on this portfolio. The only encumbrance, just like a regular mortgage, is on the property. So the day you close that loan, you can liquidate it, you can trade it, you can do whatever you want, and it will not impact the loan. I'll show you on the next slide on how this qualifies. So as an example, you have $5 million, could be a combined checking, savings, bonds, etc. We'll take the fixed term of the loan, in this particular case, say 5 years or 60 months, and we'll average that as the income. So as you can see, a $5 million portfolio gives you a very large potential to use the monthly income to qualify. So you could have a mortgage payment in, up to 80 or in excess of $80,000 a month. Again, super easy way to qualify. Very, very smart underwriting. Next. So our US expat investor loan, and this is what I had spoken about in the very beginning. We try to make this loan as if you were living and working in the US. You walk into your local bank and you provide your tax returns, etc. This is exactly how this loan works. If you're a US citizen, you need to maintain at least a 680 credit score, provide 2 years of your tax returns. No W-2 is required. We understand that most foreign companies or even US companies abroad may not issue a W-2. So this requirement that you would have with most US banks, you will not have with us. Again, we can get up to 80% financing on these programs, and you qualify with the same rates and terms as you would if you were living and working in the US. And again, this, if you're a US expat, you're probably likely familiar of how this works with the debt to income ratio. And again, we need to be at or below 47% of the gross rental income from your tax returns. So this is a new program that we rolled out. I believe this is the last one of the last slide. This is a really great program. If you have a child that is attending school, perhaps they're attending school in Atlanta or any other state, they used to have to qualify if you wanted to buy a property for your child on being able to service your debt in your home country and service the debt in the location where you're buying the property in the US. No longer is that required. Much like the AM Investor Plus loan, we go off of the projected rental income of the property, even though your child will be living in the property. As long as they have an F1 visa, this is a fantastic loan program to get them to qualify. And again, as you can see, when we do the appraisal of the valuation, we will get the supplement. That supplement will be used as the income to qualify. As long as the mortgage payments will work, then the loan qualifies. So thank you very much. If you would like to get in contact with us or with Steve, you can scan the barcode. Everybody that is attending this webinar and people that maybe weren't able to attend will receive a recording. Probably takes about a week to edit it. So you'll be able to refresh what we discussed. So Steve, we're gonna answer some questions now. And I will read the questions, and then if it's for me, I'll answer it. If it's for you, so let me see. Wow, we've got a lot of questions already lined up here. Okay, first question. Why rental yield is so high in Atlanta? Can you say more about the job market? Why are you confident it's easy to find tenants? Steve, I believe this would be for you.
Yes. Well, basically, just the population growth, mostly. And also, Atlanta is very spread out, but now many people want to live closer to the center. And we have just the number of students, over 270,000 students, university students in just Metro Atlanta. And unlike in the past, they're staying here. If you have a group of people in Atlanta, you'll know that 90% are not from Atlanta. So it's just growing very fast. So prices are still affordable, but the rents are going up because the rent market is really high. So that's why the yield, it's supply and demand, basically.
Great, thank you. So I think this next question sort of goes in what you were just describing, but what is the reason behind all the growth of the region? I mean, obviously we saw all these companies flooding into there, but what is the reason behind that, at least from your perspective?
Well, I think it's an area that grew late in the US. It's not as popular as some of the other, it's not as well known, I should say. But it's all the states in the Southeast are what they call right to work states. So basically you can hire and fire easily. They're very friendly for business. There's a lot of incentives for business to come in. And that's why this is growing. There's a lot of education. They have space, populated. There's a lot of space basically, and universities, and the region is just booming. It starts from the coast, but it's coming into that area. And I think a lot of people realize the standard of living is very high here for the low price.
Okay. So next question, and I think it's all kind of following a similar, I guess, thought, but how do you see the growth in price appreciation going forward? And again, I think that was like something that I touched on from what I got from your presentation, especially these areas that are gentrifying. These are the areas, if you're going to invest, you got to pop in there right away.
Yes, the thing is, Atlanta has some history. First is the region's growing, and they need a hub city, and Atlanta is the hub city. It is the most diverse. I will give you an example. I grew up from 1973 in Atlanta, and I'm Korean American. There were less than 100 of us. Now it's the third largest Korean population in the US after LA and New York. There's over 110. One county, the most spoken language is English, Spanish, and Korean. No one ever think that Atlanta is like that. We have a huge Hispanic, huge African, Indian population, dwarfs all of them. It's just so many different, it's a very diverse, and there are not that many diverse cities in the Southeast. But so a lot of the tech companies want diversity now. It's diverse. UPS is based here because of the hub, the logistics. So, and we have the second largest, most busiest port in the East Coast, the Savannah port. It's going to be the largest on the East Coast because we can still build, while New York, they can't build out anymore. So there's a lot of things coming in. So we have the second largest port, the hub, but it's an area that a lot of international, especially from Asia and Europe, they don't really know Atlanta so well because it's not a tourist attraction. So they don't really come here to, until the Olympics happened. After the Olympics, all of a sudden the world came and the population really, it has more than tripled since I started living there. So it's not from birth. Yeah.
And I think too, one of the I guess events that you pointed out is the World Cup. Yeah, well, the World Cup will soon be there. Once the World Cup is there and the world knows about what Atlanta is, I think the values are going to shoot up. There'll be more people coming to that market, and anybody that owns a rental property is just going to see some massive success in this area. So next question, any rent control issues like there are in California and also New York, for example?
No, I think the whole Southeast is very landlord friendly. We can actually evict someone. We can start the process the day after they miss the rent. We don't try to do that, but legally it is possible. So
yeah,
very landlord friendly.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think we always recommend the landlord friendly states or cities, because if anybody's had any experiences in some of the other states, such as maybe California and New York, it's probably not a great experience when it comes to somebody that maybe doesn't pay their rent on time and you want to get rid of them. So next question. I'm an India passport holder living in London, and I want to buy a property in New York. I'm very diversified. Can I still qualify for a mortgage? I'm also self-employed. How is my income assessed? Excellent question. I'll answer this, Steve. But your passport, as long as it's not from a sanctioned country, is really not a concern. Again, because 100% of our clients are living and working abroad. They're all foreign nationals or expats. An Indian passport is absolutely fine. And if you're living and working in London, we can take that income if that's how you qualify. But if you're self-employed and perhaps you're not showing your true serviceability, this is really where our AM Plus investor loan comes in, because we're not going to ask you for your personal income documents. We're going to go off of the cash flow of the property, and that's what's going to be used to qualify it. So if you'd like more information on that, we're happy to go into more detail. Next question. Do you handle 1099 exchanges? What range rates are we seeing now? And can you purchase through companies based outside the US? I believe this is for me. So 1099, I think you're talking about a 1031 exchange, actually. So a 1031 exchange is when you're buying a like property or more expensive property to not pay the capital gains tax. Absolutely, we can do that. We also have some expert tax advisors that work only with foreign nationals and expats that can help you actually optimize the 1031 exchange. The rates that we're seeing now, certainly, I mean, everybody is aware they are much higher than what they were, say, several years ago, but they're still historically low. We're looking at rates, say, in the 8% range, but we have fantastic loan programs that are fairly new that allows you to take advantage of, say, interest-only payments in order to still make the yield work. And we always say, marry the property and date the rate. You're not always going to get the best deal on the property when the market is hot, but right now, and I'm sure Steve can attest, it is a buyer's market. It is a time to jump in now and to be able to get really good deals on properties that maybe we didn't see prices like this now. And I'll let Steve kind of touch on that a little bit, but I'll answer that last question. Can you purchase through companies based outside the US? Unfortunately, no. I think you're talking about a blocker. You can purchase a property using a US LLC or a corporation, which is super common, protects you for a variety of reasons. But there still needs to be, for a standard mortgage, there needs to be the ultimate borrower. So even though you qualify for the mortgage personally, the property itself can be held by the entity. And Steve, maybe you can kind of touch on what I just discussed about the properties.
Sorry, about
why is it a good time now? Is it a buyer's market? What's, what are we looking at?
We do have very low inventory right now, so the home builders are making quite a lot of money, but it's the best time to buy, I think. I have worked with a lot of investors. It's actually a better time than when the interest rates were lower. Like you said, we have a choice. We can negotiate. And someone said last week, if you bought a house last year, you could afford a $400,000, and now you can only afford a $320,000. And my answer to it is just buy the $320,000, because in a few years it will be $400,000, and you can refinance. If you wait, everyone is waiting, and then the prices will skyrocket when the interest rate starts coming down. So now it's better than before because you can choose.
I absolutely agree. And I think most of our sophisticated investors, this is where they make the money on the downturn. And as you said, and everything is cyclical, when rates go down, these property prices are going to shoot back up because everybody that's been sitting on the sidelines going to jump back in to get up back on the low interest rates. So, next question. Do you have or work with anyone on the tax side of all of this? Absolutely. Again, because this is all we do, we partner with guys like Steve, who is an expert in real estate for foreign nationals, experts in this area. We've also partnered with US tax experts in various regions that also specialize in this. So if you have any questions, you email myself or our office, and we're happy to put you in touch with a professional tax advisor. Next question is, how does my credit history in my home country affect my ability to get a mortgage in the US? Very, very good question. So we do ask that you do provide a credit report from your home country if one exists. Now, we're really not going through it line by line. We certainly don't want to see that there's been a bankruptcy recently or whatever it may be. But really, our main point for looking at your foreign credit is to show that you've had credit and you understand the ability to finance and make monthly payments. That's really it. Okay, next question. How much would the mortgage pricing differ if I have large income proof versus if I don't show income? So I believe you're saying if you qualify on a loan program where it's qualifying only on the rental income of the property, or you're qualifying using the income letter. The income letter will give you a little bit of a better rate. Or maybe a little bit more options on loan programs. So it certainly is advisable if you can prove your income through this letter but it's not necessary depending on the loan programs. Oh, Steve, I think we lost you on the camera there. Okay, next question. Is the U.S. expat investor scheme the only one that U.S. expats can use, or are the other options available? Yeah, I mean, it really depends on your situation and what you'd like to do, but absolutely, most of the loan programs that are available for foreign nationals are also available for U.S. expats. Next question, can I use rental income from the property I own to qualify for a mortgage for a new property? Not really. So if you're going to use the rental income to qualify for the purchase, you would need to use the rental income for that property you're purchasing. Or if you're refinancing, it would be off of that property. So you cannot use rental income generated from another property to qualify to buy a second property, unless this is your business, you own multiple properties, and we can show that there is sufficient cash flow. Next question, where can I access a recording of the presentation if I missed the first part? So at the end of the presentation, it will take about 4 days to get the edited version sent out to everybody. So if you signed up for the webinar, you will receive a personal email. But we also have a very vibrant YouTube community, and that is at America Mortgages on YouTube. And you can see not only this webinar, but you could see, I think we're probably close to 100 webinars or shorts or whatever it may be that is also available on our YouTube channel. Next question, I missed the contact details. How can I contact you? We will, at the end, put everybody's contact info again on there. So if you want to reach out to Steve, certainly. If for some reason you lose Steve's information or whatever it may be, you can always email our office and we can put you in direct touch with Steve. Next question. Oh, a former Atlanta guy. I was a student in Atlanta in the late 80s. What I loved most about the city was the incredible canopy, which is exactly what you said. Has recent developments reduced the canopy, especially in the Northwest and the Northeast Atlanta? Steve?
No, one of the nicknames of Atlanta is the city in the forest, and they're proud of it. We're very proud of that. And I don't know if he knows about the Atlanta Beltline they're building around the city. It's the largest project in the U.S. They're going to build 22 miles of walking around the city to connect the different neighborhoods. And trees. I'm part of the Japan America Society, and we're doing a project to build cherry blossoms along some parts of the Beltline. And there's so many projects, the trees of Atlanta are involved. We're very proud of the trees here. It's one of our basic treasures. And so, yeah, they're trying to keep it. Like I said, I work with Trees of Atlanta, and they are really trying to make sure that Atlanta keeps, actually, there's more canopy now than before, because they are trying to keep the temperatures lower, and they know the trees help. So, yeah. I love the trees. There's a lot of trails that people don't really know about Atlanta. So yeah.
That's fantastic. Sounds absolutely beautiful. Next question, can someone make the loan variable from the onset and not fixed to pay out early, say 5 years to pay off the loan? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you want to shorten the loan term, you can, but of course that affects the amortization, which affects the payment. We always recommend to take the longest amortization possible. If you intend to pay off the loan early, that's absolutely fine. It's your prerogative. Normally, if you're buying a property as a second home, normally there is no prepayment penalty, meaning you can pay off the loan or pay down the loan at will without any kind of a financial interest penalty. On the investment properties, they normally come with a 3-year prepayment penalty. The prepayment penalty is normally minor. And if you did want to, say, refinance it when rates came down, we can easily do a calculation to see if it actually makes sense and when the break-even point would be. So to answer your question, yes. Next question. Thank you. I already have a property portfolio that you guys have helped me with. So maybe time to expand. Absolutely. And thank you for being a client, and we appreciate you on the webinar. If you'd like to invest in the Atlanta area, Steve is absolutely fantastic person to get to. Next question. In general, how much higher is mortgage pricing for non-US persons versus typical US mortgage rates? This is a fantastic question, and I think you'll be surprised. So when interest rates were super low, there was actually quite a gap between what a US citizen was paying and what a foreign national was paying. Now the gap is actually quite small. So as a foreign national, you're not paying much more than what a US citizen is paying. And a lot of it has to do with affordability and being able to still get decent rates, even for foreign nationals. So I think if that's your concern, you shouldn't see much of a difference. Next question. Next question. Excellent session, Robert. Can you do a session on the San Francisco Bay Area? San Francisco has suffered lately, but I'm wondering if that creates opportunity. I think it all creates opportunity. Again, if you look at our experience in sophisticated investors, this is absolutely the time that they're jumping into the markets. You know, as you just stated in that question, Larry, you know, markets, example, San Francisco depressed, people can go in there and get much better pricing. No longer are they being outbid like they were before. Atlanta, shortage of housing, massive flood of people coming in. It's an absolute perfect storm for investors. Next question, Steve, this would be for you. How does the EV industry affect the housing in Georgia?
Before I answer this, just to go back to your previous question, you know, despite San Francisco losing, you know, population, all that, there is only one San Francisco, and it will always come back. I mean, there are opportunities everywhere. I mean, there's only one New York, there's only one Miami. Atlanta's growing because just population is growing, but scarcity is always what drives appreciation, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Right.
About the EV industry, it's huge. Right now, in the Savannah area, Hyundai is putting $5.5 billion right next to it with an LG $4.3 billion. They're already hiring over 10,000 people. Up in Northwest, there's another $4 to $5 billion that EV come in Northwest Atlanta, and Rivian is building another $5 billion. I mean, the good thing is they're building now, and they know they need housing because they're going to hire tens of thousands of high-paying jobs. Not to mention the hundreds of suppliers they're going to have to build. But they're building now, but they need to build housing along with it. So this is an opportunity. Where will they live? Will they live near the factory? Where they live a bit closer to other areas? I mean, that's a local knowledge that I am looking at it very carefully. Where are they building the housing? It's not necessarily right next to the factory. You don't want to live right next to the factory, but there's going to be massive need. And that is a thing that economic developments are talking about, because great, you got a lot of jobs, a lot of high-paying jobs, but where are they going to live? And the counties where they move to actually benefits, because that's where all the tax dollars are going, not where you work, but where you pay your taxes. So this is a very interesting question, but right now it is a massive issue in Georgia and in some of the other cities. I mean, it's going to affect housing like crazy. But the thing is, these are not low-income housing. These are engineers, software developers, executives overseas. So we have issue with housing. We have issue with schools. So they're great opportunities, but at the same time, these are challenges as well.
A fantastic answer. So looks like we have the last question and then we'll wrap it up. It says single family versus smaller condo versus multi-tenant investment. What is the best opportunity? Stephen, I'll let you, as this is a real estate question, dig into this.
Well, I think multifamily is great. I think it's needed. Students are not going to live in single family. But as you have family, have children, they also want to live in single family. I've lived in an apartment before in Atlanta, in Tokyo. So there's both. I think they're all very good as far as you have housing. Now, condo, has usually appreciation is not as good, but what's happening is a lot of people from New York, Boston, they're coming here and they're used to condos. They're used to smaller spaces, but near walkable areas. So that's also become popular. But of the three, I think right now, single family is the best in Atlanta because we still have land. Once it becomes more scarce, I think the multifamily is also a very good opportunity. But right now, single family and condos are really the place to be in Atlanta at this time. I wouldn't say the same for New York, but in Atlanta, I think we still have land to build.
Fantastic. So I think that'll wrap up the webinar. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and a real appreciation for Steve to be on. I know it's quite early in Atlanta now, so thank you for giving us the insight of not only the Atlanta real estate market, but Atlanta itself. So I don't know if you want to say any parting words, but feel free.
Thank you, Robert, for giving me this opportunity. And if anyone wants to visit Atlanta to take a look, we are not very far from the Masters golf tournament. So if you're for Masters, please come by. I'll give you a tour around the city, and even Augusta if you want. Augusta is another nice city for investment, for short-term rental anyway. So I think what Robert is offering, this is fantastic. It's a great time to invest. I think the higher interest rate, personally, I think is better for me because I know it can only go lower or higher. And if it doesn't come lower, then you got it at the right time. I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity, I think. Like you said, sophisticated investors know that, trouble or there are opportunities when things are not perfect. I think that's the best time.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Okay, so thank you, Steve. And again, thank you, everybody. Our next webinar will be in a few weeks, and we'll be sending out notifications on that soon. Appreciate your time and have a good day or a good night, depending on where you're at. Bye-bye.